A lot is going on in the world, and we'll be talking about that here on Pod TV, seeing which one of my fellow panelists decide to join me and all along those lines. But like I said, a lot's going on. I know that there was a budget agreement that was made and all along that kind of line. And of course, there's a number of other things that are taking place in the world as well. So always glad to be talking about that here on Pod TV and seeing what other important stories there are as well. So, like I said, a lot's taking place, and we're always glad to be talking about that here on this particular network and seeing what folks' reactions are to a number of the stories that are taking place in the world and around the world, and seeing how people are reacting. XCNN anchor Don Lemon was arrested in Los Angeles after a Minnesota protest, and Treasury yields rise on higher than expected December PPI. And Democrats reach a shutdown agreement with Trump, and Tulsi Gabbard emerges from the sidelines. So Tulsi Gabbard was definitely Gabbard, I should say, was definitely involved in this particular break and all along those lines. And NASA delays the first Artemis moonshot with astronauts because of extreme cold weather in this part of the country and all along those lines. A social justice advocate, once named Bostonian of the Year, has been sentenced in a fraud case and all along that kind of line. And Donald Trump sues the IRS for $10 billion over tax data leak. So apparently he's suing the IRS, and we'll see how this plays out as well. Christy Gnomes treated FEMA as an adversary. Then came a massive winter storm. So definitely people are talking about Christy Gnomes and her reaction and how she's dealing with FEMA in this particular day and time. And ICE detains the New Orleans police recruit after a immigration judge signed some documents as well. And Prince William chose to remain silent while King Charles made a rare appearance and all along those lines. So there's a lot going on in that way. And the U.S. trade deficit widens by the most in nearly 34 years in November. So, like a couple of months ago, it widened by the most that it has been in that particular space. And Mavericks teenager Flag, that's Cooper Flag, who used to play at Duke University, breaks a 46-year NBA record. And definitely there are people that are looking at Jasmine Crockett and her chances of beating James Talaraka in a Texas primary. So definitely that is something going on as well. And 60 years ago, a record blizzard killed 200 people in the Northeast. I guess with the weather being the way it is, and with people expecting some bad weather this time, folks are making comparisons and seeing how it will play out in terms of comparisons and all along those lines. So, like I said, there's a lot going on in the world, and we're always glad to be talking about that here on the Pod TV network and seeing what folks' reactions are to a number of these stories and how they are handling these very stories as they come about and all in that space. So definitely a lot's going on in the world, and we're always glad to be talking about these various stories and seeing how people are reacting to them. Israel reopening Gaza border crossing with Egypt on Sunday after a long closure. So Israel has announced the plans to reopen Gaza's Rafah crossing on Sunday. So definitely that is something that people are talking about as they'll be reopening the crossing to civilians. They'll be coordinating with Egypt, EU, and the PA on security. So definitely that's something that people are talking about, just like they're talking about Keir Starmer's visit to China. So Trump tells UK and Canada that boosting trade with China is dangerous. So Donald Trump warns that it's very dangerous for the UK to deal with China. And the Telegraph has reported Starmer has just wasted his time in China. We need a proper system on foreign investments. So we'll see how this plays out in that part of the country. And European Crisis Fund worth over $500 billion could be used for defense, is what the ESM is saying. So definitely that money could be used for defense for the EU. And Xi's military purge may set back his Taiwan ambition. So definitely that is some good news for those people that are fans of Taiwan's having its own independence. And New Zealand has declined an invite to join the Board of Peace. So definitely this Trump Board of Peace has had some notable folks that have declined to join, including now New Zealand. And Iran to label EU armed forces as terrorists over Guards blacklist. So EU adds Revolutionary Guards to their terrorist list, and all in that space. So definitely that is folks that are talking about as well. And forget taco, is guac that matters with Trump's tariff. That's a opinion piece in the Washington Post. So Trump returns to a familiar role, sowing trade chaos. So definitely Trump's trade minefield is squeezing America's allies. And South Africa expels Israel diplomat Ariel Seidman. So South Africa expels the top Israeli diplomat over insulting attacks on their president, and all along those lines. So South Africa declares Israel's deputy ambassador persona non grata and orders him to leave the country. And people are still talking about the mother of all deals between India and EU. So ONBC's Inside India newsletter, EU edges out US in getting India to slash auto tariffs, but can the European car makers win big? That is what some people are asking as well. And Southeast Asian bloc faces challenges from Myanmar to the South China Sea. So ASEAN to stick to Myanmar peace plan despite its failure to stop deadly civil war, and all in that way. So ASEAN commits to completing uh, South China Sea Pact in 2026. And IDF believes 70,000 Gazans killed in the war, as claimed by Hamas. Definitely, Israeli military reportedly acknowledges 70,000 were killed in Gaza after previously casting doubt on the health ministry's count, and all in that way. So they are now admitting that many people had been killed in that particular war. And Japan election becomes a high-stakes gamble for Takeshi as personal popularity faces tougher opposition. So Tokyo host voters will hand Prime Minister Takeshi new clout to counter China, but we'll see whether that is the case or not. And scientists are quite surprised to find one polar bear population thriving. So definitely it looks as if the body condition among salvo bears, polar bears, Ursus martinis during a period of rapid loss of sea ice. So the polar bear population is thriving despite some of the most drastic sea ice loss in the Arctic. So this is definitely surprising people. And clashes between government troops and Tigrayan forces erupt in Ethiopia. So flights to northern Ethiopia are canceled as fears mount of renewed conflict. So definitely that is something that's going on, and that's another conflict in the world that has been taking place for quite some time, and all along those lines. So I'll bring Rick Rosner in. We'll see if anybody else joins as well. And all along those lines, how are you doing on this cold day? Looking at my forecast here in North Carolina, and we're at 31 degrees. Y'all are probably at 60.
We're in the low 50s. It never gets super bad in LA.
No, it never gets super bad there, and everything.
There is some super bad stuff. Trump is continuing to pursue his maximalist strategy of doing a bunch of shit all the time. So all the shit he does distracts from all the other shit he does. So he had Don Lemon arrested.
Don Lemon was arrested. I saw that, but I saw something that would even caught me more off guard because he is not the biggest fan of big government and everything like that. But apparently he's got $1 billion and it's multi-billion-dollar suit against
$10 billion. $10 freaking billion. He's suing. That's our money because somebody at the IRS back in 2016 leaked some of his tax returns. Now he promised he would release his tax returns when he was done being audited, and it's 10 years later, never released the tax returns. Every other major presidential candidate releases their tax returns. It's been that way for 30 years. So, and he's suing for $10 billion over that. It's super garbage. I want to read you the first review of Melania is out. They've been embargoing reviews, saying you can't review this thing until it hits the theaters. Well, one review is out, gives it 1 out of 5 stars. And the reviewer, Foster's Film Review, says, so what's the point? How does this superficial, willfully deceitful reality readjustment serve the sociopathic ascension of Trump's will? Watching Melania get fit for expensive clothes in gaudy rooms, or talk up how extravagantly staged she demands her balls be, and both happen a lot in Brett Ratner's unrelentingly boring feature documentary debut. only strengthened perceptions of her as a chilly, lifeless socialite wannabe. Every one of the 104 long minutes is in the service of grandiose affectation and cruel irony. And it goes on like that. It sounds like a bad movie experience.
It does sound like a bad movie experience and everything like that. So it ought to be interesting to see how it plays out and everything like that. Because, yeah, I don't think I'll be running to see Melania. Wasn't planning to see it in the first place. And I don't think it'll be picked as one of the films that when we have Full Frame, which is our documentary film festival, a world-renowned documentary film festival in Durham, North Carolina, and everything like that. It has a lot of great films every year, and I usually go to it. I don't think I went to it last year, but I usually go just about every year and everything like that. But I don't think I'll be rushing to go to it. I don't think Melania will be a film that'll be shown this year at that particular film festival, because it's considered the Sundance of documentary film festivals here in the area and gets filmmakers from around the world. And I was actually a member of the judging committee this year, and I don't remember seeing Melania, but I mean, we don't all see the same film, so somebody else could have seen it and given it reviews. But I'm still thinking that it won't be picked, but I might be unpleasantly surprised and everything like that. But
okay, speaking of, like, our director of Lance versus Rick, we're doing shows this Sunday, by the way.
Right.
He's got like 12 movies. You should invite him to submit a movie or two to your film festival.
I've told him about the film festival, and he should definitely submit a film festival. Like I said, it is considered one of the top ones. It used to be called Double Take, then it became Full Frame and everything like that. But it has been connected to Duke University, and is definitely a lot of major names. I mentioned Nancy Bursky. I believe she at one point was the head of the film festival, and she's the one that did The Lovin' Story that I mentioned before, that was about an interracial relationship when interracial relationships weren't that common, and all along those lines.
I'm wondering, here's a story. 1 out of 4 couples have sex once a month or less. And
you said couples, so the people that are actually together, they have a sex about once a month.
And they say that they're just tired. I get that. Like, you know, the sex is work. I kind of prefer like the less labor intensive side by side, you know, like we would have called it third base back in high school.
Back in the day, we would have called it third base, but a lot of people are also probably finding cheap thrills. We know that the porn industry is very big. I was actually having a talk with a friend of mine, and we were thinking that it is part of the Epstein files, in the sense that a lot of the porn that is out there is teen-based and everything like that. Not saying that it is not all that way, because there's a lot of it that is legal, but there's a lot of it that is probably illegal as well, unfortunately.
So I mean, if you're gonna, so AI is a huge problem in that direction. Mm-hmm. Because I look at AI naked ladies, and I've been doing that for like 2 years, and the changes you see the preferred what guys prefer, because or I guess if if you're a paid subscriber, you can enter like requests, and so the appearances of the women in AI, they look younger and younger. Their boobs get bigger and bigger, basketball size. There's a standard look, and it's not good, because it reflects, I mean, porn
reflects on society and everything like that. But just in that same line and everything, because I've had this conversation with friends of mine, and maybe it's just as you get older, you start thinking in this mindset and everything like that. But I don't know whether you have this conversation with friends of yours, but some people think that as we get older, the younger women look more mature than we remember them being when we were those ages of those young ladies. Like, there are some 16-year-olds that look like they're in their 30s and everything like that.
I don't know what my kid is now 30, so so I don't know what I used to know what teen girls look like, which was when 15 years ago, when she was a freaking teen. But I don't know what teen girls look like now because we don't go to the mall. Nobody goes to the mall anymore. That's where
Everybody goes to the
you
mall, and the mall was definitely where teenagers used to hang out. But like you said, unfortunately, a lot of the malls died. I know here in Durham, North Carolina, we have a super mall, that being South Point, and there are a couple of smaller, what do they call, outlet malls and everything like that. But the more traditional family mall, one of them, Northgate, is totally gone. And I think that they're talking about turning that into like a multi-use facility. They might have some apartments and some businesses and stuff like that. And then South Square is totally gone. And I think that there might be some outlet is stuff that where it used to be, and they were doing some development in that area as well. But a lot of people, if you go to like those websites like Neighborhood Alert, not Neighborhood Alert, but Neighborhood and some of the other ones that are locally based, they will reflect on what they remember doing as kids in those malls, because both of those malls that I just mentioned used to have amazing game rooms, and a lot of times teenagers would be hanging out in the game rooms and the movie theaters.
Yeah, but why? Why go to a game room and spend 25, keep feeding quarters into machines when you can stay home and play, video games that are 8 times as awesome as the games were, in the 90s.
Oh, the games in the 90s. I mean, I think about when my parents had their radio station in Warrenton and going to the grocery store and playing Centipede. And Centipede was actually by today's standards, would be a very boring game, just like Pong would be a very boring game, because you basically are.
Yeah, I played a lot. I've spent a lot of quarters on Tetris. I played a game called Tank Battle. But I don't
remember Tank Battle, but I do remember Tetris, and I also remember Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man. So both of those games were I mean, they're still out there, I'm sure, just like I'm sure what's the one with Mario and everything. I'm sure that it's still out there.
Mario Kart, yeah.
Mario Kart. I'm sure it's still out there. You're still trying to climb the ladder and everything like that, but they're not as exciting as they were when we were growing up and playing those games. But then again, I remember, and I don't know if you remember this, but I remember also playing Jacks and playing like a number of other simple games that people would be now looking at us like, why are you bothering with like the Slinky and everything like that?
No, I mean, we had terrible toys. Yeah.
Oh, we had horrible toys. I mean,
even the stuff like even stuff that not every kid had, because it took parents who were a little crazy to buy you like a slip and slide.
Yeah, the slip and slide was one.
It's a miserable toy because you lay it out on your lawn and it runs water across a plastic sheet, and you slide down the sheet until you run into a sprinkler head going, like 15 miles an hour. Then you have to go to the emergency.
But Rick, do you remember the horrible, and I guess people are still using it, swimming pool that used to exist? It would be like the one that was
the little baby
in the middle of your yard and stuff like that. I actually saw something interesting. I want to come back to news. I was watching an episode of Bones, and Bones made a reference, and I did interview the creator of Bones, because she's the author that led that life that it's based on and everything like that. She lives in Charlotte. But the episode, they referenced Donald Trump, because at one episode, Bones was teasingly thinking about running for president. And I think at the end of the episode, her paramour FBI boyfriend had some buttons made with her as Bones for president. But in one reference in the play, he said even Donald Trump is thinking about running for president. So this was so Trump got elected the first couple.
I mean, a lot of shows predicted. There's a lot of people sat down. They were writing science fiction about the future, and they're like, who would be the worst out of everybody who's a public figure? Who would be the absolute worst possible president? And they came up with Trump. And like in the 30 years ago, The Simpsons said, imagined a future with President Trump.
And Bones would have been around the time, because Bones was out there in the early 2000s, I think, and everything along those lines. I know that
Trump threatened to run for president several other times.
Yeah, he did threaten to run and all of those lines, but I just found that reference kind of hilarious, because I was watching it late night while doing some.
So have you talked about he sent the FBI to Fulton County, Georgia, to look for election fraud in 2020?
Yeah. He's done that, but he's also claiming that he's the man of peace, and now New Zealand has rejected him. But I'm wondering, is he going to try to go into some of these troubled countries, including some in Africa that are having troubles again. I just mentioned that Ethiopia is having some of its own issues, and now the Nigeria's military ruled filing retaliation after gunfire and explosions were heard in their capital. So Niger military government says
so he's building up.
Coast are behind the airport attack. So maybe he's going to try to help the.
He's building up for an attack on Iran. 30,000 troops are in the vicinity of Iran on ships and stuff. And you know, people, if you look up the odds, like Polymarket, give the odds of a U.S. Attack on Iran by March, 64% probability.
Well, he did get some very interesting news, and this is sad news. And I know that I don't know, maybe Sasha will mention it on some of his shows, because I know he's oftentimes talked about, you know, in his mind, because he is Ukrainian by birth, the only good Russian these days is probably a dead Russian, to use that old saying and everything. But apparently Zelensky reported that he's seeking 50,000 Russian losses a month to win the Ukraine war, and Russia's military losses in Ukraine surpass any major power since World War II. So they're saying Russia and Ukraine's combined war casualties could reach 2 million soon, is what some reports are estimating from a couple of days ago and everything like that. So this is definitely a scary thing, and it's not just all Russian.
There's a story that Ukraine is using younger and younger troops. Germany, towards the end of World War II, was sending, you know, 13, 12-year-old kids out to fight. Ukraine's not in that situation yet. Russia, I don't know, Russia has been fooling stupid people in other countries into coming to Russia. They advertise, come work in Russia, make money. You come to Russia from some of these other countries and they send you to fight and get killed. So I don't know if Russia is running short of guys. You know, they've run through 1 million. You know, it's a country of 160 million people. Right. They've lost 1 million people to the war, either wounded or killed. So I don't know.
Yeah, they've lost a lot of people. We got Jacoby joining us as well and everything like that. I'm thinking that a country in Africa may give Trump an idea, and it's a scary idea, because the Burkina Faso junta has announced a ban on all political parties, and I could literally see Trump trying to ban all military parties.
The deal with Trump, second-term Trump is, but first-term Trump, he had a lot of his cabinet consisted of, he looked for, you know, people with relevant experience or people he thought might do a good job, like Rex Tillerson, the former CEO of Exxon, was his Secretary of State. Tillerson lasted a year before he got disgusted and left. But there are no more people like that left in his cabinet. He's surrounded now by idiots and yes men who just go along with whatever he wants to do. And that makes for his first presidency was bad. This one's even worse because he's got no controls. You know, suing America for $10 billion because somebody at the IRS leaked some of his tax returns. I mean, A, it's not going to go anywhere. But B, that's $10 billion of Americans' money. He's already giving $1 million to every member of Congress who was investigated because of January 6th. That's our money. He's just handing it out to his friends. He's
totally handing it out to his friends. There was some good news from the world of oil and everything like that, because apparently an ex-Nigerian oil minister did not take bribes from industry insiders, according to what courts have been told, and that was reported by BBC. So not everybody.
I don't think we should, or what Rick just pointed.
No, he's pointed out a couple times
about how crooked
he is and everything. But go ahead.
All right, Toby's muted until he comes in better. Here's another story, and something I've been considering doing, but I would be stupid to do it. American men
just
have
really
low testosterone. Toby's back.
Yeah, just really quick, just to get back to what you had pointed out about the $10 billion thing, and you said that it won't go anywhere. Who controls the Department of Justice that's actually doing the investigation on that?
His Trump and Pam.
So he's suing the U.S. government, which he is a part of, or which he is the head of, and he's using the Department of Justice, which he is the head of, because he tells Pam Bondi to do whatever. So essentially, that case will he's going to settle with himself for $10 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to pay him $10 billion. So it'll go somewhere right into his pocket because we have no controls anymore. And he's going to win that case because they're going to settle, or he's going to settle with himself. So that epitomizes how corrupt this current government is, as well as points out the authoritarian nature and the dictatorial style that he has.
Hey, Jatovia, I got a question for you that somebody asked me, and I didn't have an answer because it is such a bad situation that we are in with the current government. And I was talking to a friend, I don't remember which friend it was and everything, but they were asking me basically, with everybody knowing, well, not everybody, but many people knowing how corrupt the government is, and many people knowing, even though there are MAGA people that don't want to believe it and everything along those lines, what can the American people do? I mean, we know we got another No Kings March in March. We know there are a number of protests, including the one that Don Lemon got arrested at in Los Angeles, around Minnesota, and everything like that. But it seems, to use the old analogy, that because it is so corrupt, that a lot of times people are feeling like they're tilting at windmills and everything like that. So what do you think that we as a people can do other than just try to weather the storm for the next 3 years and everything along those lines? So what can we do during this horrible time that we are in the world?
You can't weather the storm. You can't sit back because basically what they want is for you to comply. They want you to sit back and do nothing. And yes, just weather the storm and it'll be okay. As he steals Fulton County's voting records, to run back and talk about how corrupt the voting is. So we need to take it over. So the federal government should run those voting machines, or I should send my people in there. Just like, hey, I need to take the money from Venezuela and put it in my bank account so I can make sure that it's spent correctly. No, it's all corruption. It's so basically what's going to end up happening is he's going to use ICE as a way to protect the vote that's coming up that he knows he's going to lose because the independents are against him, and even his base is fracturing some. So he knows he's going to lose the House, which loses a lot of his power. He's going to lose the Senate, which loses a lot of his power. So he's going to try his best not to lose either one of them. Yeah. And so right now, at this moment, I mean, you've got to raise your voice. You've got to keep on honestly protesting. Truthfully, what took place in Minneapolis with Alex Peretti, even though there have been multiple others who have died and been shot by ICE, which we don't tend to recognize, but this is bordering along that Kent State issue that happened years ago, which changed a lot in terms of the country's perceptions. And that individual who was running the government at that time ran across a mass or a population that was upset and ticked off at what was going on. Donald Trump is transactional and he wants to be loved. His ego needs to be stroked. So if he honestly, if with the optics of what went on in Minnesota, people need to keep on, putting the pressure on him, because he's not going to. Congress isn't going to change with the Republicans in there. They're going to do whatever Donald Trump tells them. But as long as the optics change and he can't control the narrative, and people don't blindly start reposting or saying, "Oh, Donald Trump is right." Yeah, as long as he sees this reality and that people really are pissed off at him, then he'll change. He'll do some things, and then we will have a vote in November.
The easiest thing people can do is show up and vote. That he's predicted to lose 28 seats in the House based on his current approval ratings. Approval ratings aren't going to go up because he keeps on just being more and more of a corrupt dick. more people are retiring from the House and Senate than have ever retired before because they hate the political landscape. They look at their chances. 58 people are not running again for the House and the Senate. So yeah, he's predicting if people show up the way they should, he will lose the House. He might even lose the Senate.
I mean, you've got to not only show up, for the vote, but you also got to show up and let your voice be heard and not sit back and again weather the storm. Because as long as your voice is heard, you get out, do your thing. Just let it be known that what's going on is wrong. Because as you pointed out, Rick, how some Republicans are retiring. Yeah, that's a problem for the Republican Party where he's going to lose a lot of votes because they know that the populace is upset. Then if he goes even more extreme than he is right now, because he's very extreme, he's already lost. For example, there was one of the top 3 Republican candidates that was going into, and he was actually on the rise. He was actually probably going to end up winning that vote to be the Republican rep. But he dropped out because he said, I can't do this anymore. They're attacking me. They're attacking my people. So I cannot represent the Republican Party. You have the guy in, is it Virginia, who left the Republican Party, who's now running as a Democrat, even though his policies don't completely line up with the Democrat policies. He just can't be associated with that. So these things, as long as your voice is heard, you protest, and you just get out and shout, because sitting back and weathering the storm will do nothing but comply and be complicit in what's happening.
So if 2 members of the House who are Republicans flip to be Democrats right now, the Republicans would lose control of the House and they'd lose their speaker. I don't think that'll happen, but it could if things get bad enough. Let's talk about, for just a second again, Don Lemon. So Don Lemon was charged. It took a while to charge him because they kept going to judges, and judges said, this is a bullshit case. You got nothing here. Even like conservative judges are like, this is garbage. So they had to go to a grand jury. Don Lemon is on video. He was charged with being part of a protest at a church, but he's on video reporting from the church. He's not disrupting shit. He's just talking to people on camera in the church about what's going on. Similarly, like 3 or 4 other journalists were similarly charged for being in the church asking questions. They weren't disrupting, they were covering a protest.
Yeah,
so
like I said before,
this is the canary. We've already had the canary in the coal mine, so I hate to keep using that, but this is another this is another page out of the authoritarian playbook. This is a page out of being a dictator and controlling the narrative, the media, and what people see and what people say. They have already, if you look at in North Korea and with Kim Jong-un, you know, in North Korea, they put up movies and all this other stuff about their leader, about having all these glorious things, that he was the first to do this and he was the greatest to do this, because it's a glorification of the leader and creating an idolatry and basically doing exactly what's going on in America. You're releasing a Melania movie while she's a first lady, talking about how great she is. She came over here on some visa that she never should have received in the first place, went to porn. Don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with porn stars. They're brilliant people, but there are some that are brilliant people that become great business owners and so on and so forth. But that's all she did.
Well,
she became a model and did all that.
All right, she didn't really do porn. She did nude.
Well, I apologize. Yes.
She did nude modeling. It wasn't quite porn, the full
but she did nude. She did nude photography.
Yeah, she did nude photography.
But
so again,
she was a low-level model. If you're a supermodel, you don't have to do nude stuff, or you might for artistic reasons. But if you're a mediocre model, you're going to take every assignment, and that might be some creepy assignments where you're in a fur bikini or no bikini at all. And yeah, she was, scrambling to get by, in her.
Yep. And that's. But that's the thing, is that that's the thing. If you take into account not only this movie that's trying to glorify and make Melania this angel and this beautiful and this, oh my goodness, Trump is also doing the same thing. When he goes on the media, everybody talks about, or a lot of the right-wing media talks about how accessible he is. Sure, but that doesn't mean that he's telling the truth or actually being honest. He's not telling the truth. He's just out here propagating and trying to prop himself up to glorify himself. And then he throws his name on these bank accounts, which is another Trump stakes thing. But then he throws his name on the side of the Kennedy Center, throws his name on this. It's another glorification and another authoritarian style dictator play. And we're just allowing these things to happen because we get these simpleton arguments of, oh my goodness, you're just mad about, and that's what the MAGA playbook is. Oh, you just argue it.
But Toby, speaking of the MAGA playbook, I'm sure that they are going to get upset, just like they have been in Britain, because there is a book out that is talking about the history of slavery. We know slavery was a real thing, and all along those lines. So there's a book out, and Smithsonian Magazine has been talking about it, where the British Crown enslaved thousands at the height of the transatlantic slave trade, and new research is revealing their stories and unjust and inhuman. And there was even a royal family that ignored a black abolitionist plea to end slavery, and all along those lines. And there's no doubt British Crown was the world's largest buyer of enslaved people by 1807. This book reveals, and I'm sure that a lot of the MAGA people will be saying that this is stories that we already knew and that it shouldn't be told, even though it is part of history. And definitely, one of the things they say about history is that the more you tell it, the less likely you are to repeat it and everything like that. So I just wanted your take on that, because I'm sure the MAGA people will do just like they did with the vaccine project. They will.
Philadelphia is suing the Trump administration for pulling down the slave memorials that's there. Right. That tells you all you need to know about what's going to happen with that book.
Mm-hmm. It's
going to disappear. They don't want it out there.
All right, a couple other things. The government may still shut down tomorrow.
I thought they'd come up with I thought they'd come down with a agreement.
This article says that the agreement might stall and there might be a brief shutdown. I don't know. I don't freaking know. But here's another thing. Trump's tariffs were designed to reduce our trade deficit, that we buy more stuff from overseas than we ship overseas. It hasn't done that. Trump's tariffs, we actually have a higher trade deficit now than we did a year ago.
And I do see what you said. They said the odds of U.S. government shutdown rise after the funding deal stalled in the Senate. So they did have a deal in place, but it looks like it's stalled right now. So
there's a ton of freaking chaos, which serves Trump's purposes, because there's so much, you say it a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on. When my mother-in-law had Alzheimer's disease, she explained her confusion by saying, there's a lot of stuff going on. And there is a lot of stuff going on, and we are confused because we're in a storm of bullshit. But bullshit with serious consequences.
Well, speaking of bullshit, apparently there was a very weird, I do sometimes watch the TV show FBI and everything like that, but apparently a man impersonating an FBI agent tried to get Luigi Mangione out of jail. So apparently there's this weird thing that just happened recently, like yesterday. So he was trying to free him, and apparently it involved everything from a pizza cutter to a fork. So he tried to get him out of jail and everything like that. So yeah, we got some weird stuff going on in the world of police, law enforcement as well. So, but fortunately, it looks like it was averted and everything like that. And Trump did immediately blow up recently. So he blew up at his border czar's bid to calm things down in Minnesota. So definitely the agents in Minneapolis could be pulled back if local officials cooperate, is what the border czar said, that being Tom Homan and everything like that. But Trump is now saying, on pulling back federal presence in Minnesota, and not at all. So even though his own person is saying that they want to pull back and everything like that, he's trying to blow that up. So it's another case of him.
So to Homan, looks like a bad guy, talks like a bad guy, but has in the past been less terrible than Kristi Noem and Bovani, and he was going in and was going to try to calm things down maybe just a little bit, but Trump changed his mind and wants to keep things, at a high temperature.
Well, speaking of that, apparently.
Well, the thing is, again, it's all show. So remember, real quick, remember when they went into Venezuela and said that they'd taken down all this Maduro stuff? Well, all they did was just change management. Right. And the reason they changed management was because it was an image problem. So they're still selling the oil. The Venezuelan people are still being taken advantage of. They're still being killed. There's still problems in Venezuela. There's nothing. The only thing that's changed, Maduro name. So what they're doing with Bovino and Holman is the same exact thing. Holman's not changing anything. Holman sounds like this sheriff. Holman sounds calm, not like this militant guy. Well, Holman has issues in the past. He's a election denier. He also, if I remember, in his past was doing some very racial things before he got fired from the position that he was at. Holman has a bad past too, and he's not changing anything. All that's going in is that he's talking calmer about beating and abusing people.
Well, I mean, that comes back to what I was going to mention, because even coming back, because usually on Fridays, and we'll be doing a rerun because he'll start back to his regular Tuesdays and Fridays on next week, because he was only doing Tuesdays for the last couple of weeks because of his own vacation schedule, that being Sasha and everything like that. But there's a lot of optics that Trump tries to do as well, because apparently Russia says it has agreed to pause strikes on Kyiv till Sunday. So they're going to take like a 2-day break and everything like that. So Zelensky is being cautious, and I don't blame him for being cautious during this bombing pause and doing extreme cold weather. But I mean, that's only going to give them peace for what, today's Fridays, for like 2 days, maybe 3 at the max, and everything like that. So they are saying that Ukraine is seeing quieter nights, as Trump says Putin will not attack its city. So apparently he's agreed to not attack for 3 days, but that's not saying that he won't attack first thing Monday morning and everything like that. So this is one of them optics cases where it looks like a good optics, but is it really accomplishing anything? That's my question, because it looks like more just optics than anything else.
Optics. I mean, again, we're now I signed a peace deal with the people, the Palestinian people and Israel, and we don't talk about what's going on in the news in terms of we don't see in the news the stuff that's still happening there. So really, was there a peace deal? What happened to that peace deal if people are still being killed? So It's an optics thing. It's the same thing that Putin's done. They're still killing people. It's just.
Yeah, it's totally an optics thing, along those lines. Yeah, I agree with you that it's an optics. Apparently, speaking of optics, apparently Dr. Oz, who we know has his own issues and everything, is traveling to LA seeking fraud. And of course, Newsom is saying that his findings are baseless, but he's alleging fraud in Van Nuys and prompting a response from the Armenian community. So it looks like we're not just going after Somalians, but now we're going after Armenians.
Wait a sec, Doc. What is Dr. Oz's position?
He has a position in the White House, but I don't remember.
Why is he searching out fraud?
Well, apparently Newsom filed a civil rights complaint against Dr. Oz over fraud cases, and now there's a latest feud with the Trump administration between Newsom and Trump.
Let's be honest.
Dr. Oz is going as his attack dog. You know how sometimes people have an attack dog that they will.
Let's be honest. He's quote unquote going after fraud because fraud is a buzzword that got people in Minneapolis.
Right.
So it has nothing to do with fraud. It's just again, we just talked about optics. It's a buzzword. Hey, I can say the word fraud. What were the 3 words they used for Doge?
All right,
waste, fraud, and abuse.
Let's talk about the specifics of this. So Oz is head of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, and he's, I guess, going to LA to look for Medicaid fraud among Armenians. So it's not going to work because we got a big Armenian community here. Armenians are good guys, are good people, and they're white people. You can't scare people with freaking white people. You know what Armenians do? They wear bulky sweaters. They go to the Glendale Mall. They drive muscle cars like Dodge Chargers. But you're not going to scare Americans with frickin' Armenians. This is going to be, and plus you got Newsom, who aggressively stands up to Trump and will make fun of this. And this is some lame ass shit.
No, it sounds like
what it is the same thing.
Up there on something you just said, because and I could be wrong because I don't remember everybody's skin tones and everything like that. But if I remember correctly, aren't Armenians kind of like the Russians in the sense that there are a lot of dark and complected Armenians and everything like that?
The Armenians are like Jersey Shore. They have they're boisterous. They're big in their presence, but they're freaking white people, and they are already aggrieved. Now, Armenians 120 years ago suffered the first Holocaust.
Right.
They were massacred. 1 million Armenians were massacred by Turkey, and Hitler used that Holocaust to build his own Holocaust.
Hold on. Just real quick. Let me point out. Now we're talking about the Armenian people. Are they American?
Yes.
So have we called them Americans or have we called them Armenian?
Armenians, but
wait. Let me finish this part. So you're talking about the Armenian people and using Armenians. So in other words, MAGA hears foreigner.
Right. That's what they hear.
Foreigner. And hey, foreigners are taking your money. Because foreigners are committing fraud. That's the whole game. It doesn't matter that they look white. You can sit there and, Jewish people look white and they still attack them. So when you say Armenian, and that's what's going to hit the news. These Armenians, these foreigners, and that's what it's going to be. That's just the game that's being played.
I don't think it'll work because Armenians.
Oh, I agree.
But
it's a tougher sell.
And they will get on the news. They've been pissed off for a century because they easily express grievance because they are legitimately pissed off. And these are a lot of Armenians are small business people. They own carpet stores. They do auto sound. They do a bunch. Businesses. And you get these people being interviewed. LA has 7 English language news stations, 3 Spanish language news stations. If this turns into a thing where you got reporters out talking to people of Armenian descent, the amount of news clips where you have a very whitish, bulky guy going, "Fuck you, Dr. Oz. This is bullshit." I kind of almost look.
I hear what you're saying, Rick, but that's kind of. I think that's where they went after Don Lemon because there are a lot of very vocal, and I'm not trying to stereotype an entire continent, but there are a lot of very vocal Africans. And the last clip that I saw from Don Lemon, he was actually interviewing a African gentleman. I think he was from one of the other countries. It wasn't Somalia, but it might have been Nigeria or Ghana. That was a engineer, but he was also very well spoken and everything like that. And he was an Uber driver, so he was actually at his Uber stop, and he was being harassed by about 15 to 20 ICE officers and everything like that. So that clip went very viral and everything because I saw that clip and he handled himself very well. That particular gentleman from that particular African country. And I wish I knew which country it was, but it was probably either Ghana or Nigeria and everything.
Everything Trump does appeals to his base, but his base, the hardcore MAGAs, are only 15 to 20% of American adults. Everybody else looks at his garbage and is like, there are some people who are Republican who are like, well, he's our guy. We elected him. We just got to kind of live through this. But everybody else is like, holy shit, this is more bullshit from this con artist.
Well, speaking of con artists, and he's in bed, and I know that one of our founders is hoping to go to Zero Week. I think that's in March, which is the oil industry. But apparently, Trump is now threatening tariffs on countries selling oil to Cuba, just like he did with the oil to Russia. And he's declaring a national emergency and all along those lines. So he's threatening the tariffs on any country selling oil to Cuba. And some people are saying that that's going to back another brown people into the corner, which is Mexico, because Mexico has definitely been selling oil to Cuba, but others have as well. So even Havana is saying a hurricane is coming and they are preparing people for war as the U.S. is shutting off their oil valve and everything like that. So are we now about to get ready to get into a whole situation?
I don't know. Like I said, like nobody is holding Trump back. If he had, they act on his whims. Right. So here's some breaking news. Lindsey Vonn, the ski racer, she's 41, getting ready to go to the Olympics. She crashed in her final World Cup downhill and was airlifted out holding her knee. So we all know. And then they shut down the course because it was too dangerous. Too many people were crashing. So that's the thing. So I would like to see, as an old person myself, I like to see old people do well. I hope that she recovers in time to do the Olympics.
Yeah, hopefully she'll recover from that and everything. I know a lot of what people are talking about, because one way that you can get sympathy is anytime the children are involved. We saw that with the case of the young gentleman, and I can't think of their name, that was coming from Cuba in that whole they were coming across from Cuba to Miami, and this was like decades ago. Yeah, and everything along those lines. But now a lot of people are looking at this 5-year-old Liam Canajo Ramos, who was detained by agents, and this person is only 5 years old and everything. So they're saying that this depressed 5-year-old is depressed and lethargic, and that's what a Texas congressman said and everything like that. I can only imagine what it would be like as an adult to go through that, and now you're going to do this to a 5-year-old and everything like that. So that is one way that is definitely not going to go in his favor, because anytime you're doing things.
This is a kid in ICE detention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like again, this is something that Trump supporters eat this stuff up. You know, screw the 5-year-old. His parents shouldn't, come to America. And it's something where you get 20% of the allowed 20% of Americans love it, and 20-30% of Americans aren't paying attention, and then the other 50% of Americans are like, this is bullshit.
Yeah. And I mean, there's even some other cases, because a Texas man detained by ICE was his disabled son's sole caregiver. And one of his last wishes was that he get to go to his son's funeral, and ICE denied the release of this Texas man for his funeral and everything. So
Toby mentioned
his caretaker father remains in ICE custody in Dallas.
So Toby mentioned that we talk about the 2 people murdered by ICE. Mm-hmm. But it's not really 2. 9 people have been shot by ICE. I'm not sure how many other people died from being shot. So one woman was shot 5 times, didn't die. ICE claimed that she used her vehicle as a weapon and rammed them. No, they rammed her and then they shot her. And it's not really 9 people. It's 33 people who've died because of ICE in the last year. Most of them in custody from having their medical needs ignored. Their diabetes goes out of control. They can't get their meds. They frickin' die. So all right. There's a thing I want to talk about, which is testosterone. So there's an article in today's Drudge about more and more American men are using testosterone. And my wife talked to her doctor, who says, and a lot of people say, men's testosterone in America and the rest of the world keeps dropping because we get a lot of microplastics in our diets. Like animals eat, plastic ends up every place. Animals eat grasses, and whatever they eat, they get microplastics in their diets. We eat these animals. Microplastics contain a ton of estrogen, I believe. So you get microplastics in your body, and it knocks out your testosterone. And so that's part of the reason that we got a fertility crisis.
Yeah, there's a fertility crisis. I understand that some people that are into, because I think that if you make that change, because I know a couple of people that have been going through that change of going from women to men or to boy and everything like that, they are required to have a certain amount of testosterone in their system as well in order to make the change and everything like that. I had a quick question. We got about 5-6 minutes to go. We can go a little bit over. But what is your thoughts and anybody else that wants to jump into this conversation about non-traditional, just me right now, casting? Because I did see that the Latino creators wrote an open letter amid Deep Cut's casting backlash because some people are upset over this actress that is now exited A24 film after backlash.
Okay, so
her being cast as a character with Mexican heritage, even though I don't think she has any Mexican heritage.
All right, so what happened was
that's why Eva Longoria and other Latino artists signed a letter amid the Deep Cuts casting backlash.
All right, so there's this movie, Deep Cuts, which is casting, and they cast this actor who's, I like her a lot. She's in Marty Supreme. She's in on HBO, I Love L.A. Her name is Odessa Azion. And she looks, ethnic-ish. She's got, long black curly hair. She plays, I believe, a Jewish woman in Marty Supreme. I don't know if I think she is Jewish. Anyway, she goes to try out for a part in this Deep Cuts movie. And they say, well, we can't give you that part. Will you take this part? And she's like, yes. And she didn't. And then she gets this part. And then people get mad because it's the character she'd be playing is, half Latino, half Latina, half Jewish.
Right.
And she hears she sees the backlash, and she immediately withdraws, and she says, I'm sorry, I didn't research the role. I just said yes to it. I agree with you. It should be played by somebody of Latina heritage. And she immediately backed out of it. And so, you shouldn't be pissed at her. But also, I don't know, at some point it goes too far. I guess this is not too far in that there's a lot of support for putting a Latina in the part.
Yeah, speaking of Latinas and people in their parts, I was just wondering, what did you think of because I was a fan of some of their music, and all along the line, still a fan of some of their music, but there is speaking of movies, and we were talking about Melania earlier, there is a Beatles movie that's out, and definitely people are asking about Paul Mescal, Harris Dickinson, Joseph Quinn, and Barry Keoghan, who are playing the Fab Four, and all of them don't necessarily look like the Fab Four. But I just wanted your take on this movie and everything like that, because it's that's Sam Mendes, I guess, did this movie and everything like that. But as I'm looking at some of these actors, I don't think that they necessarily look like Lennon, McCartney, Harrison, and the fourth member who is slipping my name.
Yeah, okay, but I don't know. I mean, the Beatles, they broke up in 1970. That's freaking 55 years ago. Do we care at this point that they get actors who look exactly like the Beatles? Plus, it's not a Beatles movie. It's 4 Beatles movies. It's 4 linked movies directed by Sam Mendes. And I guess each movie will focus on one of the Beatles.
One of the 4 Beatles and everything. Who is the fourth one? Because like I said, I know it's McCartney, Lennon,
John, Paul,
Harrison.
George, and Ringo.
Oh, how could I forget Ringo Starr? That's the one I forgot, because it was Paul, John, George, who I said, and Ringo. How can I forget Ringo Starr? But Ringo is the one that was slipping in my mind and everything, and he's just as famous as the other. Actually, George is probably the least famous of the 4 and everything like that, because it was George Harrison, which is the other one, right?
So yeah, and I feel like you want to hire people who do the best job, and you can give them the haircut. The Beatles had they called them the 4 mop tops. They had this kind of, and so just give them the freaking haircut and let them act.
Let them act and do their acting job. Speaking of that, there's going to be this weekend. We'll be probably talking about it on Monday. A couple of major events. I mentioned Full Frame earlier, and this is the weekend of Sundance. So Sundance will be having a lot of things going on, and actually it had a lot of things going on because the Sundance Film Festival, I think, just ended there in Utah, and they are now saying farewell to the Sundance Film Festival, and we'll be heading, I guess, to where they
Boulder, Colorado, my hometown.
they'll be heading to Boulder now, right? Because they were in Park City and everything like that. So they'll be heading to Boulder next year and everything like that. And then, of course, the other big music award that'll happen on Sunday will be the Grammy Awards. And everyone is talking about Bad Bunny versus Kendrick Lamar versus Lady Gaga and who should win at the Grammys. And the one quote that was in the Vulture was, "Everything is so jaded about everything." Sometimes it even feels that way here on our network and everything like that.
The Grammys are chaos,
Right.
Because they give out so many frickin' Grammys in so many categories. It's hard to tell. Like you got album of the year, song of the year, record of the year. There's just a lot of overlapping categories. I worked on the Grammys one year, and that is a tough room.
That's tough. I never worked on the Grammys, but I did do an award show here in Durham, and that was fun. I would love to do something as big as the Grammys, but yeah, just any award show is tough because I forgot what it was. It was like some Durham awards that we were creating and everything like that I worked on. And I've done, of course, the Road to the Apollo. Apparently, one of the Little Rascal stars was in the news because apparently Bug Hall has revealed that he took a vow of poverty and lives off the grid. So we talk sometimes about people living off the grid with his 5 children. So he's got 5 children. So apparently this child star ditched Hollywood to live in poverty. And this is in Arkansas where he's at. So he turned Catholic extremist, living in poverty off the grid in Arkansas. So I might try to reach out to him, see if he wants to be on Pod TV and everything, because that would definitely be an interesting story and all along those lines. But yeah, he is living.
Let's go back to award shows for a second, though. For the host of an award show to feel good, you want to get laughs from the crowd, and the Grammys isn't a particularly boisterous laughing crowd. At least at jokes, and it just like you've got 3,000 people in an auditorium, and if they're not laughing, you just got to barrel forward, and it's tough. And all you need people mic'd. Like I listen to a lot of comedy on the radio, and if they have improperly mic'd the room so you don't get strong laughs for your stuff, it wrecks the performance.
No, totally wrecks the performance. I'm not a big fan of canned laughter either for exactly that reason, because a lot of times you can tell that it's canned laughter and everything like that. But the other thing is that, there's a lot going on in that space. And that was another interesting Bones episode where there was one where he actually did better as a comedian because the episode focused around a comedian crime that involved a comedy room and everything like that. But he did better. Booth did when he was doing his own jokes about being an FBI agent and making some references to guns and things that an FBI agent really would do.
Well,
Two of his friends wrote the jokes, and one of the jokes were friends writing like certain kind of corny jokes, and the other one writing like corny observational jokes, which are definitely the character Bones found funny because there were things like.
Well, you've hosted dozens and dozens of events. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes the audience is paying attention, they're with you. Sometimes they're distracted, bored, and it's tougher. And from hosting stuff that if you're able to go to an audience and give them some local details, right. They love that.
Yeah, they love that if you can give them local details. I know we've talked about it before, but apparently Sydney Sweeney was back in the news a couple of days ago because she launched her lingerie brand CERN with Hollywood sign stunt, and she feels sad about the public scrutiny of her botany. She didn't have permission to climb the Hollywood sign and hang bras. So apparently a couple of days ago in your area, she went on the Hollywood sign and hung some bras, but she didn't have permission to do that.
So the Hollywood sign, it's a hike, but you can hike up to the sign. I think it's surrounded by chain link fence, but you can still get at it. She had permission to film. She did not have permission to climb up on the sign and hang bras off the sign. I don't know if they put her up on stand. Those letters are like, 25, 30 feet tall. They're huge. So did she get on a letter holding I don't know. But she's selling underwear. She's been interviewed. Like, why do you do all these commercial endorsements? And she says, because I have expenses. I've got to pay my manager, my agent, I've got withholding, I've got, and she says, and residuals have gone to hell. So, and she's not wrong. It used to be that if you were on a TV show, which she's been. She became famous on Euphoria. If they rerun the show, you used to get significant amounts of money for the reruns. That's gone away. That the residual money is down like 99.8%. And she's like, I got to do ads. A lot of the easy-ish money for creatives and other craftspeople in entertainment has been squeezed out.
Well, speaking of entertainment and all along those lines, apparently there's a new job because Dahar Mayan has been appointed the NFL Chief Kindness Officer for Super Bowl 60. Apparently he hasn't always been kind because apparently they're saying he had 5 felony charges and allegedly underpaid his staff. But apparently this is a new job that is out there. So the NFL has hired Dahar Mayan as their Chief Kindness Officer. So I guess the NFL has to have a kindness officer now and everything like that. So
I don't know. I mean, I know that there was a significant penalty in one of the playoff games last weekend because was a player taunted.
Right.
He was over on the opposing team who on the bench. He was standing close to the sidelines, and I did a little bit of a dance and got like a 15-yard penalty. So, yeah, football changes to reflect.
Yeah, I remember that kind of penalty. I think he was actually in the play, and I think that it actually cost them from stopping the player in stopping the other team because that 15-yard penalty gave them a first down. And I think they went and scored on the next play and everything like that. So, yeah, it was definitely.
So, I mean, the football changes. They used to wear these little leather helmets 80 years ago that didn't protect against anything. Now, sometimes some of the players have these giant, super padded helmets because they want to have their brains work after they're done playing football.
Well, speaking of people lurking and everything like that, and apparently the Olympic sprinter, Sha'Carri Richardson, was charged with speeding in Orange County and everything. So I guess she's not just a fast runner, but also fast in her car because she was arrested for speeding in Florida and everything. Because I know she's a fast runner. She's a very fast runner, but now she was.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Olympics. There'll be a nice distraction from our domestic bullshit.
I agree. I'm hoping we can maybe find some people like we did 2 years. I think we did it 4 years ago, but there were a couple of people that were connected with the Olympics that were like there was a volleyball player from Duke, and there were a couple of other people that were doing like Olympic reports for us. So maybe we can find some other people around the country. They don't have to be from Duke. They can be from even your neck of the woods. They can give us some Olympic coverage because I remember it was a couple of young guys. One was from Morocco, and the other was from one of the Middle Eastern countries. I don't think it was Morocco now that I think about it and everything. And the other one had some Olympic experience playing for the volleyball team, and I think she was from Latin America, like maybe Brazil or something like that. So maybe we can get some people.
I'm sorry, my coffee is kicked in, and now I have to.
I'm going to wind everything down and everything along those lines. Just the last thing I was going to say is apparently the Seahawks will be wearing college and Navy uniform combo in Super Bowl. Whatever one this is, because I always forget what an L and an X is because I'm horrible with my Russian numbers and everything like that. So they've announced their Super Bowl colors and everything like that.
60, isn't it? Super Bowl 60?
Yeah, and that would make sense because the L would be 50 and the X would be 10. So that would be 60 and everything like that. So yes, it's Super Bowl 60 and they've announced what colors they'll be and everything. And on that note, we're going to get out of here.
The Seahawks aren't going with that lime green, that crazy green that they have?
I don't think so. Looks like they're going with like a navy color and everything like that because it looks like it's almost like maybe a play to the Navy itself and everything like that because it says that they will be it's a nod to the nation's history because this is the 250th year. So
if I were a football team, I would make our uniform be football colored so you can't tell who's got the ball. But there are rules against that.
And apparently Erin Jackson doesn't want to be the only Black woman to win a Winter Olympic individual competition. So she's reflecting on being the first Black woman to win gold in an individual event to the Winter Olympics. I was struggling with some feelings of imposter syndrome, and that's something I talk about on the online dinner party quite often, but she's looking to defend her Olympic speed skating title at Milan Cortina and everything. So that's one of the things that'll be looked at because she'll be defending her title and being the first Black woman to win gold in an individual event. So Erin Jackson will be trying to win 2 golds. So it looks like she's also friends with somebody named Brittany Bowe, and they've got this wonderful friendship going on as well. So we'll see what goes on in that space and whether she has things like that. Oh, and Jordan Childs is back in the news because apparently the dispute over the Olympic medal stripped from U.S. gymnast Jordan Childs is back in Swiss court. So she's granted an appeal in her Olympic medal case. So maybe she'll get a chance to get back her bronze medal because that is definitely going on as she has been granted an appeal.
Anytime there's a dispute like that, it's like give both people the frickin' medal. Like when a trans person wins an event, if you're really bent out of shape, then give both people like a frickin' gold medal. If it happens very seldom, and just like give out an extra frickin' medal. All right, I gotta go. I will see you on Sunday.
We'll see you on Sunday when we'll be doing Naked at Night at about 10:30. And then, of course, we'll be back here on Monday. But you'll be sending out your subject matters, including some of the things we've been talking about this week for Saturday or something like that. I know one of the conversations we'll be talking about is the snow apocalypse throughout the country, but not in Los Angeles.
Okay. All right. Talk to you then. Thanks.
Talk to you then. Bye.